our content before we go into discussion as a group, so that way families can get insight from us before maybe you have to duck out early. The good thing is we'll post this information on the Web College Counseling Resources page in Whipple Hill later this week. So if you do have to miss part of today's program, or you have a friend who's missing today, tell them they can find this program as well as our video recording of this online Friday or maybe even Monday. So without further ado, we'll get started. My name is Hannah Colliver. I'm new to the Web family and new to the College Counseling Office. I previously worked in admissions at a selective institution north of here in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. I'm excited to be part of Web and to start getting to know your students. I've seen a lot of 9th graders, a lot of 10th graders, a lot of juniors, some seniors celebrating choices, and it's been exciting to be part of your family all together as a Web group and then as a small collective family unit. Helping you answer these questions is a really fun part of my job. It's important to understand kind of how colleges approach Web altogether, how they get to know us as an institution, how they get to know our students, and how they're able to really understand a student's academic readiness for the challenge that each university is going to be expecting of their enrollees. First question people always wonder is, how is GPA actually calculated at Web? Before we even get to the college admissions process, how does the GPA actually work here at Web? So I'll break down some of the basic facts, and I've printed them exactly as you need them on your parent memo. We use a 4.0 scale, meaning an A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, a C is 2, a D is 1, and then so on and so forth. But there's a special metric for honors and AP classes. Students in honors classes will get an additional 0.5 added onto the weight of that A or B or C. If they're in an AP designated course, they get an additional 1 point added onto the weight of that letter grade. Letter grades stay the same, but the point value of that is what will change depending on the rigor of that curriculum. So that's where in that transcript, you'll see a student who's taken general CP courses in her first year at Web has a 3.37, a variety of A's and B's there. As the student moves into some honors classes and AP classes, the GPA pushes closer and further up past a 4.0. Designating that the student is getting strong grades in harder, rigorous classes. So that explains that a little bit. All subjects, except for athletic participation and service, are calculated into the cumulative GPA here at Web. And because of the class size and the competitive nature and the rigorous environment at Web, there is no ranking of class students here. That's really common across a lot of independent schools. It's pretty common on the college side too. Many schools are walking away from the ranking of students because they recognize that all students are challenged in their environment altogether. So it's not a metric that they may be using in their assessment of your student in their admissions review. So that covers GPA in the transcript that you see, but let's go a little bit deeper into the curriculum that a student may have taken here. How do colleges actually assess a curriculum from a transcript? Colleges are reviewing applications and transcript within school context, meaning they're going to be looking at a student's transcript within the offerings available to them. Schools submit profiles, which many of you have a copy of, to the schools and the colleges, and colleges will look at how students have challenged themselves within the environment they've had available to them. They're not going to be asking a student to take classes not within their realm of access. So in fact, they're just looking at that student within their home environment and if they've stretched themselves in appropriate ways. Many schools may recalculate a school's reported GPA to help level the playing field between schools, but a student's letter grades and curriculum are always important. They also tend to look most closely at core classes: English, mathematics, science, social studies, and foreign language. From there, we can talk a little bit more in depth about the AP curriculum and how standardized it is across the country. It's a national curriculum. Colleges see AP designation as a really strong, a pretty standard learning environment that's going to be mirrored at different institutions that are offering them. And of course, there's the opportunity for some colleges to award credit for the experience offered in that classroom setting. But altogether, the curriculum offered here at Web is rigorous across the board. There are 3 different levels of learning here: AP, honors, and CP courses, and our student example here has taken a wide variety of those. What's really exciting from this transcript, though, for me as an admissions officer, is the grade trend. And that's how a student has performed from each year here at Web and how that strength of curriculum has improved, as well as the performance as a student. Doing better as years go on and working harder in the rigor of the curriculum the student has chosen. So moving up from a 3.37 to a 3.66 to a 4.21 to a 4.09, ultimately with a 3.8 cumulative weighted GPA altogether. Colleges like to see an upward trend from their students because it tells them that as classes get harder, they're performing better. When they transition to college, it's important that they are ready for a rigorous learning environment. If they're able to demonstrate that within their high school environment, then they're set up really well for success in their transition to a new learning community. Next question is what do colleges know about web and the web education? Specifically, for our story here, what do they really get to know about us? Web graduates 100% of our students into college. A really exciting fact when you're looking at national trends and graduation rates for high school students and what directions they actually go into. Web graduates go on to excellent institutions across the country because their prep here and the web specialized opportunities that we host are top notch. In fact, that's because their preparation and their opportunities are so outstanding, colleges recognize that and are able to denote that in a student's application, in the interview that a student may have with that admissions officer. Within the school profile, we feature some of these really awesome experiences our students are able to have as national merit scholars and researchers and published writers, things like that. By referencing test score data with AP, SAT, ACT, PSAT, all those letters, national merit recognition, GPA distribution is also published, college matriculation trends, and other profile pieces that are in that item, colleges are able to measure the strength of a school's teaching, the students' learning, and the curriculum instruction. Every college is going to get a copy of this profile when a student applies. It goes along with our college counseling materials so that that admissions officer is able to review the transcript in reference to what the environment is like for that student. College admissions professionals also make priority visits to see us throughout the academic year. They see and connect with us as a counseling team as well as with our students throughout the year, particularly in the fall for our college fair hosted specifically for our web students. Grades 9 through 12 are invited to engage with officers at that point and are coached on how to do a college fair well. They also come and visit with us one-on-one for specific college visits throughout the fall and sometimes in the spring as well, making special road trips to see us here in Knoxville and sit down with our counselors to talk about new programs, new scholarship options available, trends in their application history, maybe special opportunities for scientists or artists or performers. We also are able to connect with our admissions representatives at national conferences and college tour programs. In fact, that's where our third teammate is today, is on a college tour program in North Carolina, connecting and telling the web story where we go and helping to identify ways in which our students can connect with other places as well. Admissions counselors get the copies of that school profile every year. We update it as an office to make sure that the web story is clear, that it's exciting, that it has depth, and that college admissions officers are getting to know us and the strength we demonstrate as a community, as a school, as a place of growth and development for a full person. Every school gets a copy of that, and their job is to review apps in relation to those offerings and this environment. So how can students best present their academic strengths then? In all of this information so far, how does my student leverage their experience here? What's most important, and I think the theme that applies to any student, is to perform well and to seek help when needed. This can apply to any student, regardless of grade, regardless of current academic placement or sitting or grades. Perform well when you're challenged and seek help when a student actually demonstrates a neediness for that. I think it's really hard for a student to ask for help sometimes, but often that's a really important skill to learn before you get to college. Because if your student might be like me and is a little nervous to ask for help in that first year of college, it's hard to catch back up. The good thing is the web community and the web teachers here want to see your students succeed. So they're here to help coach your students through that experience, through that development. What our counselors recommend is that students take rigorous classes that are appropriately challenging. That's going to be particular for every student. Challenges are where students grow, and teachers and advisors are able to identify those areas because they spend every day with your student in those arenas. So it's important to listen to the advice of teachers and advisors when structuring an academic calendar for each year. They know your students' strengths and opportunities for improvement and what arena, what classroom might be best for their continued growth in that subject area. So lean on your teachers because they know what's best for your student and they want to see students succeed. Along with that, parents ask colleges and then us as counselors if an A in a college prep class is better than a B in AP classes. Admissions officers at selective colleges usually answer that an A in an AP course is better. That's hard for a lot of students to actually meet. So there really isn't a right answer to that question, but it brings up a lot of interesting discussion points. But the main one here for today, and I think for web students and their families, is that rigor is key overall, but balance is as well. Balance is going to look different to every student because each student has their own strengths and abilities. So helping your student identify where they can be challenged and continue to grow, but also where they can continue to grow in a safe space that's going to build them the better possibilities down the road. We want students to take the toughest classes that they can handle in their areas of strength. If that's where they're demonstrating their greatest possibilities, we want to see students push themselves a little bit outside their comfort zone there. But if taking a tough class is going to lead to a lower grade in other classes, however, it's time to listen closely to teachers and advisors to figure out what the best configuration of a schedule might be. Just because we offer AP classes in all disciplines, very few students would be wise to attempt an AP in every subject. That would be incredibly difficult, not only scholastically, but I think mentally and emotionally to manage that weight load. But our job as counselors is to help identify opportunities for students, so let us help with that structuring. We'll move on to test scores and how those are interpreted in the admissions process. Colleges that require standardized test scores are going to be considering them carefully. They're asking for them for a purpose, but they're not as important as grades and strengths of curriculum. They're a verification of a student's performance overall and are sometimes used to help standardize the review of admissions applications, especially since the ACT and SAT are calibrated nationally across the stage. Counselors in our office are really great resources for each individual student to come up with an individual testing strategy. So as your student is going through the motions and preparing maybe for their second PSAT or getting ready for first full real sittings of the SAT or their first real ACT, they can come and see their college counselor for individualized strategy planning on how best to put their foot forward for that. But then there's a little bit of meat missing from our admissions soup stew. It's the passion part. While grades and numbers are all really critical to assessment and getting to know a student's readiness for challenge, passion is an important part of learning too. Web does a great job at nurturing that. Passion should be nurtured early and often. Let a student follow their hearts in learning, extracurricular activity, and community connections. That's what colleges want to see from their community. That's what they hope to see from their student applicants. When a student is excited about something, they actually perform better there. So encouraging your student to follow and do what they love, because where there's joy and curiosity, passion will actually get to bloom. So overall, depth is better or more exciting to a college than breadth of activity, because a student really got to demonstrate full growth and development in skill or perspective in one deep particular area. Quality is more important than quantity overall. We want to see a student has spent really good in-depth time and experience with something special to them. Colleges overall prefer deeper and increasing engagement in a few pursuits rather than a wide range of superficial involvements. Contribution and sustained involvement actually make an impact, not just in their development as high school students, but also in their engagement at the collegiate level as well. Colleges count a couple thousand, maybe 20,000, sometimes 50,000 students amongst their community. They want to see students who are able to engage at that great community level and bring something special to their new learning community. They're able to practice that here at Webb because of all the outstanding opportunities they have to play and perform and take risks and to learn together as community members, as young scholars, as leaders of Webb and the greater Knoxville area. So from the admissions officer's perspective, these are all notes that I think are hopefully helpful to you as a family as you prepare to get yourselves through the college admissions process. I know we've got a good mix of parents here, from 8th grade parents, maybe all the way through 12th grade. We're excited to have all of you here.
Do a little bit of a
yeah, you want to see? Okay, any 8th grade parents with us? Oh, yay, welcome. We're excited. Welcome to your first Pathways activity. All right, how about 9th grade parents? Welcome. Awesome. Good to see you all again. We saw 9th grade parents at a program a couple weeks ago. Had a great showing, so good to see you all again. 10th grade parents who are here. Awesome. Good to see you all too. And then juniors, parents. GPA, and then 12th grade parents. Anybody? Oh, almost there. You're close to the end. Good job.
Well, I'm for my 8th grade son. It's not
All right, good. Well, it's still exciting that you guys are all here. We're excited to see the Pathway Cafes series continue. Our third one might be wrapped up into another special program offered through the college counseling program later in the spring. So be on the lookout for our Pathways Cafe push page, or the Pathways push page. We've sent out 2 thus far. Hopefully you've actually seen them and read them. One came out in October, November or so, and another very early January. That lets you know about 2 months of programs. We have a lot going on in our office. Different ways you can engage with us as a team, different things your students need to prepare for and be ready for in the coming weeks. If anybody needs to keep an eye out for that, let me know, and I'll make sure that you're getting it. Because there's a lot of good nuggets in there, not just dates and reminders, but good admissions insight, words of wisdom from fellow admissions professionals on the college and university side, scholarship spotlights, things you may want to keep an eye out for cost-saving measures, things like that. I'd love to open the floor for discussion. If I've not answered a curiosity you may have already, or maybe you want to pose a question to our team altogether. Yes, sir?
You mentioned college counselors have a relationship with the students.
We do.
Where in the journey and the process do they know who their college counselor is? And will that person then work with them for the entire web journey?
So our office currently makes a formal assignment of a college counselor in the fall of junior year. Our focus in the fall season is really on the senior student who's applying for college, getting all their materials together, counseling on strategy and paperwork and things like that. Our juniors get their assignment in that fall to say, hey, we're excited to meet you. We'll begin our formal process with you in the winter after our seniors have cycled through their application deadlines. Our juniors and their families respond to surveys and questions, things that help us get to know a family and a student and their wants and wishes, their needs, their ideas for the college search and the right college fit, so that I, as their counselor, and Gordon as the counselor, and maybe Mr. T as the counselor, can help build a process and a list of options that best satisfy a student's possibilities and potentials for success as senior applicants. As the Pathways Program Coordinator and a new college counselor, I'm kind of the point counselor for all 8th, 9th, and 10th grade families and students. So students who have questions early at this stage can come and see me. I had one pop in today to ask me about summer enrichment experiences. We spent about 10 minutes talking about options. So if your student is really anxious and wants to get an idea of what's coming up, I'm happy to see them during a free period, before school, after school. It's helpful if they touch base with Ms. Massengill so that I'm not with another student or gone on a college tour. But we want to make sure that students feel supported and engaged with the counselor, because we're helping to tell the story that they've lived here at Webb and how they get ready for the next stage. So that's kind of how we map it across the junior into senior year transition. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What GPA calculated just on your year end, or is each semester?
Good question. So the transcript that you have here is going to list the GPA at the very top is the freshman year GPA. The next one is the sophomore year GPA. Then the 10th or the 11th grade, 12th grade, and then the one at the bottom is the cumulative GPA, the overall GPA for all 4 years of study here. When we submit a transcript to a college for review in an application, they're going to be reviewing grades generally all the way through junior year. Colleges, for the most part, aren't going to see senior year grades. That doesn't mean they are not important, actually. They still want to see those senior year progress grades. We just sent out a big batch of them to institutions across the country. But what you see on the transcript is going to be based out of year, and then the cumulative is the overall GPA that we report. Does that add something?
So the GPA is by year, but every grade, every semester grade does receive a numerical assignment. So if you look at English 9, that A minus is going to get a 3.7 first semester, and an A minus, another 3.7 second semester, and those are all averaged together, all of the grades for the year, to get the yearly average, and then all of the individual grades from every year are put together to get the cumulative
So
average.
this kid that got a B minus and then a B plus, he's gonna have a 3.
Yeah, that's what it's going to come out to for that course.
Yeah.
Then nobody's going to see that 3.0 because the only cumulative grades we offer are for each year, and then for the total web career at the bottom. Yeah, you got that right.
Mhm.
So each grade's going to each semester grade is going to get a numerical assignment to it. So we don't have, in other words, you don't have to wait to have the full year's courses to see what your child's progress is. And that's why we just completed the first semester of whatever year, and there's a cumulative GPA, just not yet for the whole year until the second semester.
I think as a parent too, on the inside of the profile, if you've not looked at our school profile, so this is what we put together at the beginning of the school year from last year's senior class. Right on the inside, it does show a grid of our course curriculum, and we have a full download of the entire course catalog describing each one of these courses on the school's website. But underneath it, it does have the curriculum and grading scale. So I have a freshman, so my first report card came out for my daughter, and I was thinking, okay, where is she tracking towards a GPA? So I think this little grading scale is a really nice way when you're looking at those first quarter grades that come out to kind of figure out, well, where is your student at that point in time? So this is a really good resource for you to know what our senior class looked like last year and where we're tracking.
Yeah, and the profile that you guys have in your hands is something that our college counseling keeps in-house in our office. We also keep them in the admissions office here at Webb for families who are considering joining us. But it's also something you can download from the website if you'd like to have a different copy or just something to save to your bookmarks. There's another key resource you can use if you're looking at curriculum options. It's the course catalog. I mapped it out with Tiffany earlier this week, and I think it's under academics, upper school, and then explore our curriculum. It's a hefty piece of material. I don't recommend printing it. But you can go through and see what classes are offered in the English department, what classes are offered in foreign language, what classes are offered in science, and it's also going to discuss what prerequisites a student is going to need to be recommended for that next course, either a teacher recommendation or a class that they have to complete or take concurrently to be in this next level of science. That can be helpful as a family if you're sitting down and preparing for course registration in the coming weeks. Yes?
Do you have like sample schedules for students, like with different profiles, like maybe somebody who's really interested in the arts?
I wouldn't have that. I don't think our office is going to house that, but I would believe that maybe the registrar would be the best resource for that insight. But yeah, overall, a really well-rounded application is ideal. But if a student has special interests and they have room for it in their schedule, go for it. If that's where a student's heart sings, then that's going to come through in an application down the road. And they're enjoying that course of study anyway. Yes, sir.
Kind of in that context, you mentioned that the student should have some sort of thought on where they want to concentrate or where they want to focus. Who is their best contact point at Webb? Is it their advisor? Is it a teacher that they respect and value? Is it somebody else that sort of guides them when they have to take all these courses? If that makes sense. Who's the person that they would normally lean on to get advice?
You're better.
Yeah, well, there are a few yeses in there, and I'd say yes definitely to the advisor part. That's the first go-to person, is your academic advisor. And number two, a teacher that a student has a good relationship with is always good to talk to about curriculum. And I don't, we shouldn't complicate curriculum too much, because there are curriculum requirements. So, a student at Webb can't major in something. Because we have a lot of curriculum requirements. We want them to get a broad-based education. But it might be a student that is interested in science and has room to take maybe a second extra science beyond the 3 years that are required, might end up doing that. Or a student in the arts might end up taking AP art, studio art, or AP music theory later on down the line after they've taken basic courses. So there's going to be room to fit in some courses of special interest, but within a broadly structured curriculum, because we want students to have a fully broad-based background. They really need to have that for colleges and for their future.
Any others? Yes, sir.
So I know that the students get access to an academic or a college portal. Do we gain access to that as well, or is that just their account that
We currently assign Naviance is the system you're thinking of. Ninth graders get their access to it at the beginning of their ninth grade year. We're going to, in fact, build access for eighth graders starting this spring because we're going to be doing some eighth grade programming. More to come on those notes. Parents, generally, we don't assign Naviance access until junior year, but if there's something particular that you'd really like to have for yourself and for your own access, that's something we can set up for you if you'd like it. But most features are there through the student's access. So I would recommend sitting down with your student and cruising through it because it's generally the same stuff. You get to see the same information. Just the student is the driver of the account. I can't add anything onto the student's page. You don't have access to that. It's just the student, which is great because we want to empower the student to take charge of this process altogether. Yes?
So the notion of college visits and having the rapport and relationship with the school. So as you poll, say, the rising junior class, if there's 6 or 8 kids that are all interested in going to Kansas, will the college counseling office arrange and go visit in Kansas, or are they running their own schedule regardless of what the kids are interested in?
So historically, our office used to do an every other year, every 3-year summer tour program. We're not planning one this summer because there's a lot of transition with me starting and getting used to new program here at Webb. There's an idea that it may be something that we pursue next summer. Generally, we're not taking student input on that. We just say, this is where you're going and you can come with us if you want to. They're really fun tours. You see a wide variety of different institutions with a lot of other students, not just Webb students, and that builds some really exciting experiences for students to think about college outside of the Webb space, emotionally, mentally, socially, academically, all of the above. If your student wants to start touring colleges, there's some information that's posted from our previous Café on the college resources page in Whipple Hill, and it's my notes from there that make recommendations based on class level. So if your student is ready to go do some things, there's some good ideas you can use to build your own personal experience if you'd like to. But Webb doesn't sponsor any Webb-specific tour programs at this
I
moment.
think you may have misunderstood. What I meant was, as you guys go out to form a relationship with the university, will you look at the rising class and where they seem to show some interest and try to form some relationships if we don't already have one?
We always try and look at the patterns of where our kids are applying. I think we've got enough history at Webb that we can anticipate that in most cases pretty well, but there are always might be some fast rising schools that we want to end up seeing. But we have a pretty regular schedule of professional involvements, including, the national admissions organizations. There are several of them, so we stay abreast of their conferences. And those things are good because you can meet a lot of officials from a lot of colleges. And so sometimes when we're out of the office, excuse us if we're not available because we're doing that college type work. The other thing we do is we do visit individual college campuses. Hannah's going off to visit, which one are you visiting tomorrow?
I'm visiting Berry College tomorrow.
Okay, Berry College in Georgia, and we do have applicants there. Mr. T's at a college now. Between us, as counselors, we've probably visited about 400 colleges and universities. Now, that's not all of them, but it covers a lot of the ones that our kids are going to tend to apply most to. But then I think your message is taken well, and that is if we're seeing a trending up with a particular school, we might think about at least finding a way to get more information, or maybe contacting that college and say, hey, why don't you visit our campus next year? We've got a lot of interest.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. It's something I think you won't see as much of visibly, because for us it's kind of behind the scenes, but we really enjoy learning about different college options that our kids have and building those relationships. I shouldn't tell you the secret, because that's sort of a fun part of the job, is seeing college campuses. And I think the one thing we've learned is that there's at least one thing I think I've learned is there's great depth to American higher education. There are a lot of colleges out there that aren't, quote, the name schools, that offer really good opportunities if it's the right match for a student.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you, my children are in 8th grade, how do you start getting them to kind of decide where they want to go, and what's the best place as a parent saying, here, let's look here, or so and so forth?
I recommend not looking at a school yet.
Okay, but you're getting them interested.
So we're going to
So
start
overwhelmed.
doing cool programs with your 8th graders actually in class one day. I'm meeting with Ms. Durkin, and she and I are going to spend an entire 2 days with the 8th grade students going over kind of how the process of how high school works, how decision making impacts the outcome of a high school experience. And then we're going to do a really exciting Strengths Explorers quest. A computer-based survey that students are going to respond to different scenarios and experiences that helps identify their personal strengths, like maybe innovation, or you're a strategic thinker, or you're a compassionate person, and helping students identify ways in which they can plug those features into their life in the upper school at Webb. So if a student is demonstrating a really strong strategy mind and spirit, then maybe they want to get plugged into the robotics organization on campus and learn to problem solve in physics classes and things like that. Those are going to be our 8th grade projects. The philosophy behind that is to help a student get more comfortable with themselves and their developing independence, helping them get a better idea of how to forward plan a little bit more independently, understanding cause and effect in their decision making and how that plays out into pretty unchangeable circumstances later down the road, so that when they actually transition to the 9th grade, they're a little bit more confident in who they are and their adjustment to this new school environment and their preparation for a more rigorous learning experience. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay. We don't want students to get too attached to schools because they're still developing as people.
But how do they know, like, there's so many choices? Like, how do you kind of, like, say, like, for them to explore and just, like, get their interest? I know you're talking about explore, which sounds great.
Yeah.
But, like, how would you kind of, like, say, maybe looking here, and we have a whole country, so, like,
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious of what to, like,
Well, we get them into
guide
that.
them.
We get them into that gradually, but our view is we want them to know themselves a little bit more. Then they need to know colleges right away. I know, at least when I was in 8th and 9th grade, self-reflection was not a strength. And so we're trying to engage them in that part of the process a little bit. But then we do start even as early as freshman year, by getting them out to the college fair. Mm-hmm. And they get an exposure to, dozens of different colleges that way on one level, and they might have a curiosity that begins to engage their curiosity in a way that they can do it without the pressure of thinking, oh, I need to look at a particular school and so on. And we actually, a few years ago, I asked the UT rep what he thought of our bringing freshmen and sophomores to the college fair. And he said, oh, they were the best. They asked the best questions. They weren't jaded at all. And they were really honest and open about what they did. So I think that's sort of a good time to start. And then begin to do maybe do a few visits sophomore year, but I think you have to gauge your child. I don't think sophomore year is too early by any means. Freshman year could be, but the question is your child expressing an interest in going to visiting colleges? Because you start visiting colleges and your child has no interest in doing it, you may be setting them up for a process that they're going to fight in later years as well. So I think you have to pick up what it is that's working for them, and then maybe you do that visits initially on a more casual basis, maybe while you're on a family vacation, but you don't spend a week doing college visits right away. Mm-hmm. And then sophomore year we do even more. We're going to be adding something called the case studies this year, where we get sophomores to just look at sample admission files and say, what decision would you make based on these factors in the process? So there'll be increasing amounts of specific college information as they go along. And you have a question?
Yes, I'm assuming this would be maybe their junior year when you all start really connecting individually with our students one-on-one. But how do you help them, or do you help them look into scholarships that would be available for them based on their talents or needs, or as they're looking at colleges and universities? Because that may be a big reason they choose one or the other.
Yeah.
That scholarship.
Yeah.
Is that something y'all do?
Yeah, most colleges most scholarships are college specific, but there are also external scholarships offered by organizations, foundations, corporations like Coca-Cola, for example, Target. And you can take those scholarships to any college, but you usually can't apply for them until at least junior or senior year. But we actually do, every year we started this about 4 years ago, we do a scholarship seminar for families. This year it's going to be in February, and it's called Searches and Solutions. And we go over the types of scholarships that colleges offer and the types that organizations offer. And we also talk about how a family can do an individualized search over time to identify possible scholarships that'll work for them. And look at different sources, different websites, different organizations that have special scholarships like Raise.me, like the New College Board scholarships, which we're going to talk a lot about. So actually asked a very timely question. That session is on February 26th?
Yes, that's a Tuesday night, February 26th at 7 p.m., and that'll be in the Bishop Center. So if you can attend that,
Yeah.
it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And we'll spend a lot of time going over the tools you can use to do an individualized scholarship search. You're not going to know which ones your child qualifies for a while, but you can get an idea of the landscape, and we can share with you how to navigate that landscape. And then we'll also leave you with some follow-up information that we'll have on the web after that session as well. Good question.
Does your office provide, or are there special resources for students who may be interested in foreign schools?
I'm sorry, to what?
Foreign schools overseas?
We work with kids on an individual basis. We don't have very many students that do that. We do have a student at St. Andrews now, I think. And we actually have another student, junior, who talked to me this morning about being interested in St. Andrews. So we have to do that on an individual basis because there are a huge array of schools, but only a very few students who have an interest in going full-time overseas. Okay.
That session that you have, I've attended it several times, and I do think it's really good, and I do recommend it for freshman parents, just because it takes a little while for all of that to sink in.
Yes.
I mean, has been my experience just to hear like all of it a couple times. But then I think I just did a Google search one time for universities that offer scholars a lot of money, and you can find stuff like that online, like a list of schools that
Generous schools, yeah.
like
There's a website we have for schools that offer what are called guaranteed scholarships,
Right.
which means if you have this GPA and this test score, you get X amount.
Yeah.
Many schools don't do it that way. Instead, they say, well, let's see who our strongest students are in the applicant pool, and we'll give them the scholarship offers. But some schools offer guaranteed awards. So that's something we talk about in that session as well. And it's something we talk about with families when we begin to meet with them individually as well. And certainly as they have their college list, we suggest that, if you've got some great reach schools that you'd like to go to, it's fine to apply to those, but also apply to some where you're going to be near the top of the applicant pool and be more likely to get scholarship offers, because that's just a factor for many families now. Higher education is not inexpensive. Good, thank you.
I know you mentioned that case study for the sophomores. Does anything else take place between the remainder of the sophomore year before junior year hits? Because mine isn't going to do anything unless told by somebody other than me.
Yeah. All of ours.
Well, there are a number of things. They've already taken the PSAT as a practice test. They're going to take the pre-ACT in another 2 weeks, a pre-ACT practice test. So they're going to have some comparative testing under their belt. We're trying to get them used to the process right now. The scores aren't too critical right now, but the process is important. Are they used to standardized testing? So when they do the real thing as juniors, we want to be sure they're comfortable with that process. So there's that part. We are going to be doing a breakfast, a parent meeting for sophomore parents on
Thursday, March 7th at 8:15.
Thursday, March 7th at 8:15. So we'll talk a lot more about that.
And then the sophomore
And
students
then
get it like
Sophomore
after spring break.
students will do a preview for them during school.
It's
And I
right
think
after
that's
spring break.
right after spring
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
So
And we'll let
there's
you know
that,
in
there's
that
that
parent
to go
breakfast
to.
when you can start getting your kids after they finish that morning
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
And again, you know, if you have individual questions, Hannah's certainly available for that,
Yeah.
as are the rest of us. But we also want them to be really good sophomore students.
Yeah.
So that's one reason, you know, we're beginning this Pathways program is to get students to look at how they can get the most out of high school, because that's what's going to prepare them best for the college process. The nuts and bolts of how to apply to college, they don't need to know about as freshmen and sophomores. They will need to know about it, but they do need to know how to maximize their web experience. And so that's our big objective.
If you have a child, my child is a sophomore and he really doesn't have a passion yet. I think he went through the Naviance assessment that you were talking about. What is your advice to those of us with children who they don't have a path yet in terms of development at web?
I mean, if your student hasn't found that passion yet, I wouldn't worry a whole lot about it.
I guess I mean in terms of being marketable for college. You're saying find a passion, that's what they like, invest in that. If they don't
Well, I also
have
think
that,
like the passion piece, like it sounds really good, but it's also a little bit lofty for a 17-year-old to have like deep developed passion. That's something that even adults really kind of struggle to find sometimes. So I think we really just want to see students that are excited with what they do. And that can be school, it can be sports, it can be the arts, it can be foreign language study, it can be service work. It doesn't need to be one particular area of work or potential career development. Just that a student likes what they're doing. College readers anyway, we're really good at finding that nuanced love within a file, because there's a lot of material that comes into it with the teacher's words speaking to the student's engagement as a class member, and the student's essay about the challenge they faced going into senior year and how, man, I have to change how I approach my classes because junior year was hard, so I'm recalibrating. But the counselor letter also clarifies the stuff going on at home and why that student really wasn't super plugged in and doing everything as a captain by 9th grade. So context is really helpful for admissions officers as they read for passion. We want to see that a student is excited. Really, that's what I am getting at in the passion term. A student will find it, and sometimes it takes them till college for them to find it. I didn't find my passion for what I do until senior year of college, and I worked out just fine. Really being able to surround yourself with people who push you to your very best, who believe in all of your very best, and encourage you to step outside your comfort zone for full growth and development, I think is where a student is able to really find what makes their heart sing. That's kind of how I describe that.
I do think passion is sort of it's a hard word sometimes because it suggests a really high level of commitment.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that.
Yeah.
And I also say, you know, as much as we're talking about quality over quantity and depth over breadth, I do think that's eventually going to be an important thing. But a lot of kids, you know, are okay being well-rounded and they like that. So I'd say, you know, if a kid's well-rounded right now and they're into a lot of different things but they don't have a single passion yet, I think that's okay. Now if they have really no interest or are generally disinterested, you know, that's a different and tougher situation. You know, I think that'd be time for some individual conversations. But I think being well, I don't want to say, oh, well-rounded's a bad thing. It's not at all. So I think that's okay to have an array of things that they're still, you know, unsure about, but still want to try. So, you know, keep experimenting with the process and take advantage of the things that are here at Webb that they couldn't get at a lot of other places. For some students, it'll be athletics, and some it'll be the arts. Some it might be the new research methods program we have, the kids that are academic in nature but want to do more with it. So, you know, there are a lot of things out there.
I just want to be respectful. I know it's a little after 5, so if anybody wants to leave, you're welcome to pop up at any time. I do want to mention a few things. So we gave out the transcript, a sample transcript for you to look at, so you can go home and just kind of look at how that student progressed through taking more rigorous courses. So that shows you a sample. The other sheet that had just some notes pages where you could write notes from today's presentation, we want you to take that and the profile, because I think as parents of Webb, it's really good if we start to know a little bit more about what our graduating class is looking like. Look at the list of schools where our students were accepted and matriculated, so you can see where students have gone to in the past 3 years. I think that's helpful. We have the Pathways brochure out for you, just so you can see, as Hannah is kicking off this program, what our goals are for working with each grade level of students and their families. That kind of gives you a more realistic perspective of what we think you should be targeting at each grade level. So please feel free to take that home with you. I'm going to reach in front of you, I apologize. We got these new magazines in the office, and we're going to bring that to the scholarship program later in the month. But I ran out before the event was over, and if you would like to just have one of these, you're welcome to email me. We have a short form version, which is for Webb College Counseling. It's just webbcc@webbschool.org. Feel free to email me if you didn't get a copy and you want me to send it home with your child. I'm happy to. So those are resources that you can take with you today. Each one of these programs, like the scholarship night, the sophomore breakfast that's coming up, the junior admissions forum that we're doing with junior parents on February 7th, Thursday night, February 7th, I'm going to continue to send either the email push pages that we do, which are every other month, or the reminders that'll come from me to let you know this event is coming up. We do try to target a lot of these that are grade specific, but if you want to come, you're welcome to attend as another parent. And that junior admissions forum, we're bringing in 3 leaders. Do you want to talk about that one for a moment?
We are, and we do this every year, but we'll have 3 admissions leaders this year from Georgia Tech, University of Richmond, and UT Knoxville. And they're gonna talk with juniors about what to be preparing for specifically in the upcoming college process. But we also have a parent session, so if you're interested in getting kind of a firsthand perspective on what's going to be coming for juniors and how these leaders look at the college selection process, any parent's welcome to attend the Thursday night session. That's February 7th. We start at 7 o'clock.
7 p.m. in the Bishop Center.
And it'll be sort of they'll talk about different significant questions and factors in admissions and how they look at the admissions landscape today. Really a good opportunity to get some firsthand information. So you don't have to be a junior parent to go to that. If you're interested in it, you're welcome to come along. And we rotated that every year, so we have different admissions leaders from different perspectives. So if you've been before, these will be, some of the folks will at least be different.
I think that's it. We'll go ahead and close our, oh yeah, one more?
One more question.
Okay.
The pre-ACT test in
Yes.
February.
Yes.
Our child, one of our daughters is not here for that. Is there a makeup opportunity to take that again, or?
I don't think so. You'd have to ask Terry Ward. But there may not be a formal makeup, but there are online practice tests that she could take through Method Test Prep, which is actually available through on the Naviance site. There's a link to Method Test Prep. And there's actually test practice for SAT, ACT, but you can also take full-length practice tests.
Along that same line, do you guys offer something after the fact that helps them, or do you give them some recommendation about how they can improve their scores going forward?
Not a specific diagnosis, but we talk with them in depth as juniors about their test-taking strategy and what they can do. Because colleges want to see the best test. They don't care whether it's SAT or ACT. They just want to see the best score. And so we usually map out which test to take. We usually say to take both tests once, and then let's see what the real test, beginning early in junior year, usually December junior year. And then any tutoring or formal test preparation, we don't really recommend before the first half of the junior year, because we want them to focus on their academics, and the impact of that tutoring is going to be greater after they've taken the real test for the first time. They've got more academic material behind them. And the tutor will have a real score to go on to really target what they need to do if they want to go in that direction. And I wouldn't say every Webb student gets tutoring or takes a class necessarily, but we have options available that you can look at when you talk about that with you. So we do set out a strategy
Yeah.
eventually when the time is right.
And students get score reports after PSAT and after the pre-ACT, and they get those in paper. Their also report is released on their portal through College Board or through ACT. And on both of those reports, it breaks down, these are sections that you did really good in, and these are areas you may want to practice a little bit more. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Our office doesn't do a lot of test coaching until junior year when we're thinking a little bit more strategically about test performance for applications.
I just have a suggestion and a recommendation. I have an 8th grader and a junior. Being the oldest child, being a junior, I've learned a lot in the process, and as an 8th grader, it's nice to know those things. It would be nice to, because this is a new program, maybe the 8th grader families could be hooked up with some veterans. We've had so many great families in web who've gone through the process. Because you learn a lot from other parents who've gone through this, other children who've done tidbits, what courses to take. I have to have a B in so-and-so course to get into this. What other activities? It's just helpful to talk. Like, when you join web as a kindergartner or a middle schooler, you're assigned a family. So you can talk about questions. It might be a good idea to link us with something. Because I have learned a lot from other moms, other kids, just talking about, hey, how can I do this? Should you do this? Because especially the first time, you're clueless.
Yeah. Well, the goal with Pathways is to have more conversations with parents, because a lot of the counseling historically was just with the student, and then the parents were kind of in the back trying to hear a little bit from the student counselor. But I like the ideas of these cafes, because we get to sit down with you and talk about the nitty-gritty details that you may only get through a third-hand party parent discussion that you have. So the point of these cafes is to sit with you one-on-one and give you real information, truth from the process and from personal and professional experiences that we have as experts, as counselors.
As far as the family pairing suggestion, we'll pass that along to upper administration.
Yeah.
There's a volunteer group that could work through PAC to get that set up.
Yeah. That's a cool one.
I'll pass that along to Mr. McDonald and others.
Yeah, he ducked out, apparently,
Let
before that
Jessica write
suggestion.
Do y'all as a counseling department or web as a school ever reach out and survey recent grads
That's what I was going
who
to
have gone through this? I have a daughter who's a freshman, and all I hear from everybody coming home is, we should have done this, Web should have told us this, I wish we would have had that. And my response to them was like, go tell them. You know, I just wonder if does anybody reach out and ask, what did we do right? Where did we miss the mark? How can we do it better?
And we have actually, we tried that a couple years ago with through a tool called Alumni Tracker and Naviance, and unfortunately their data was corrupted and it didn't work, and so we're a little bit discouraged by that.
And students are really hard to get in touch with.
The alumni office has reached out some, but I wouldn't say systematically, probably the way we could. But I think it's a good idea to look at in the future.
Yeah, because I'm
but
sure
maybe not just for college counseling, though. I think.
Yeah, I think in
To
general.
really get in contact with recent grads and.
A lot of times, and it's parents who maybe want to provide that feedback because they're living through their child going off and struggling with professor connections and friends and the adjustment to a new residential life. But from my student experience, I was so checked out of high school, I didn't give a penny for what was happening in high school. I didn't care anymore because I was ready for high school at that point. Getting parent feedback I can see being really helpful, especially as we plan these programs, for sure. That would be really informative. But reaching out to a high school senior just graduated, they're thinking about what they need to pack for their dorm room. They're getting ready for rush, what they need to get for their wardrobe. They're kind of tuned out from college counseling because they've been doing it for 18 months.
I think it could be worth a try selectively, maybe, not everyone. Because we do bring in three college freshmen each year to talk with our seniors and meet with them in a little assembly to talk about their college experience and what it's like and what to think about and what to be aware of and what they would have done differently and what they thought of their web experience. So we are doing that selectively. So I think there are web alums who are interested in doing that. It's not going to be all of them, because they are going in different directions. But there's some goal to be mined in there.
I have a suggestion. If the seniors, the current seniors, once they are through with the admission process, if you can just have 1 or 2 or 3 of them talk to parents like this after they've got their admission, I think that also would not be a bad idea before they are checked out and gone. So I think that would be priceless because they are
So they're
going.
still in
They're
the
still in-
admissions process right now.
No, I mean, not now. I'm
So-
talking about April, end of April, that time, when they're
okay.
about to make their decision. Or I'm just saying, I have a child in the senior grade, and I think what this group may be looking for,
We'll
and
see
I'm
about
still
that,
looking
though.
for to learn better.
The
from
window's a
what-
bit tight
Yes.
because, when you apply to college,
Yeah,
you have until May 1st to make up your mind, so.
I know.
you
I'm just
know,
saying because you-
Graduation is a couple weeks
Yes.
after that.
Oh, I
Survey monkey
know.
maybe, things,
No, that's an idea.
just a survey monkey.
Yes.
We get
Just
survey monkey
something,
all the
yeah.
time from web,
Yeah.
and it's, I don't know how much impact it makes, but
but some of the kids may be interested in talking to
Small
the
stuff.
parents or something.
I think we shouldn't underestimate
Yeah.
their intent to give back.
Exactly.
To make it better for the rest of the student.
And some of
body.
them, especially in the research project area and the general admissions process,
Even
maybe
the
they want to
alum.
talk about it for the other parents. So just an idea, for the senior
Absolutely.
grade.
No, I
Just
appreciate
some
that
volunteers just 2 or 3 of them. Just
Yeah. Well, it might be possible also for
yeah.
maybe those alums that come back to talk with seniors, maybe could have a parent session or something too.
Yeah.
A little more time for
That
them.
would be, yeah, I think
And
that
even
would
the
be a lot.
parents, it sounds like the parents have learned a lot along the way.
Mhm. Yeah.
But maybe the senior parents can actually, speak. Not the students,
Sure.
but the
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah. So you mean like speak to a group like this
Mhm.
of other parents? Yeah. Okay.
I'm writing all this down.
Maybe, I know you're gonna get a different level of engagement, but if you could send out a survey, to all the graduating seniors, and certainly not the first school, because you're right, they're gonna be just trying to get settled in. But to Gina's point, by about this time, they're kind of figuring out what they wish they would have had and what could have been different. And I think you might find that a good percentage of them are willing to give feedback.
Something as small as my daughter, I felt like took the max amount of AP she could take. She took 3 a year, which
Yeah.
was her max.
Yeah.
Some can take more and some take less, but still, she was one of the last freshmen to register in the spring because she still wasn't a sophomore. And all those kids coming from bigger schools that
Yeah.
had all the APs, they all got first dibs on classes. Just little things like that she's just still walking through. She's like, oh, I should have taken another AP. I mean,
Okay.
it would be doing great things for her right now. She
And
can
that was her
study-
experience as a freshman in college. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't study abroad. And that's in a specific school, but you can see those trends overall of, hey, if you think you can take this other AP, it's going to do wonders for you your spring semester, your freshman year, because you're going to be a sophomore.
Good point.
There's so many school-specific things, like I know, like Indiana, like the earlier you accept, your acceptance, that determines your housing for all 4 years. So if you're one of the last people to accept in May or before the deadline, then you get a really the
Yeah.
last housing drop. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
there, like,
yeah.
so on one hand, the feedback that you may get from students is also really school dependent.
specific, that's right.
Just like quirky little.
And
But I think even
technically,
being aware of
technically
that-
colleges are not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to
Right.
base the date of your admission or deposit
I
on
know,
housing
it's
preference,
just-
but some do it anyway.
Yeah.
So you're right, it does become
Yeah.
school specific that way.
But even then, if it's specific to a school, we could house that data in a per school, so that if you got kids who are interested in X school, then that's not kind of nice to know.
So maybe web
You
is
could,
building a
although
profile on this.
Colleges change
They
policies
change,
like
but
that
we
quite a
learned
bit.
that on the tour. So, I mean, people get that kind of, information or whatever, but like if you don't, there's just, having had 2 children go through it, there's just a lot of individual things.
Yeah. Yeah, the same true as the admissions process. There are a lot of generalizable things you can say, but each college has its quirks. It's true. So.
We really
Thanks so much
appreciate
for
your
coming down.
engagement.
This was
Yeah.
so